This film starts by showing a countryside area in America. A man named Cash wakes up and works out before starting his day. Cash used to work for Big Cat, the local drug mafia boss. He left that life after his younger brother died from an overdose. Now, Cash works on his parents' ranch with his older brother, Finney, and Finney's teenage daughter, Savannah. Cash and Savannah have a close bond because Savannah lost her mother in a car accident. One day, after taking care of the animals on the farm, Cash invites Savannah to lunch at a nearby cafe. While eating, Cash goes to the restroom, leaving Savannah alone. Suddenly, 3 men who work for Big Cat sit at Savannah's table, making her feel uneasy. Before they can cause trouble, Cash returns and asks Savannah to wait outside because he needs to talk to the men, led by the Buck. Cash is curious why the Buck and his men interrupted their lunch. The Buck says their boss wants to talk to Cash about his farm. This surprises Cash because he doesn't know why the old boss would be interested in their ranch. The Buck jokes that Cash should ask Finney about it. Cash hurries home to ask Finney. Finney admits he pawned their farm's land certificate to Big Cat for money to buy animal feed. Cash is frustrated because Finney could have gone to the bank instead of dealing with the mafia. The next day, Cash goes to see Zeke Barkley, Big Cat's son, about the deed Finney gave as collateral. Zeke tells him Finney traded the deed for a lot of money, which Cash might not be able to repay. Zeke suggests Cash meet with the mafia boss to make a deal. At home, Big Cat's men confront Finney and Savannah, demanding payment for the debt even though it's not due yet. Finney can't pay, so the thugs attack him and Savannah and drag them out of the house. One thug accidentally shoots Finney in the ear as a warning. When Cash returns home, he is shocked to see Finney injured and Savannah terrified. Savannah explains that Big Cat's men attacked them because of the debt. Finney apologizes for the trouble, and Cash reassures him they will find a solution. Cash went to the police station to ask the sheriff for help to catch Big Cat's men who attacked his family and to protect Finney and Savannah. Unfortunately, the sheriff said they couldn't help because there wasn't enough evidence. So, Cash decided to meet with Big Cat to negotiate. When Cash arrived at Big Cat's place, his old boss welcomed him. Cash asked how he could pay off Finney's debts, and Big Cat offered him a deal. If Cash completed 3 tasks, she would clear Finney's debts. Cash had no choice but to agree. That night, Cash started the first task with the Buck. They were supposed to watch a house that was the headquarters of a rival mafia. Cash got closer to the house and saw mafia members inside counting money. He quickly reported this to the Buck, who called their colleagues to attack the enemy base that night. Not long after, Big Cat's men, along with the Buck and Cash, attacked the rival mafia group and defeated them quickly. Cash then met with Big Cat to report the success of the attack. The next day, Cash talked to his friend Wilder at a bar about his problem of being dragged back into the mafia world because of Finney's debt. Wilder, who used to be in the mafia but became a priest, advised Cash to pray and seek help from God to avoid getting trapped in the mafia world again. The next morning, Cash was picked up by 2 of Big Cat's guys, Lazarus and Harlan, for a drug deal with a dealer from Mexico. They drove to the spot near the edge of a forest at the border between America and Mexico. When they got there, Cash helped Harlan unload the drugs. Suddenly, Lazarus pulled out his gun and shot Harlan. Cash was shocked and asked why. Lazarus said he was tired of Harlan insulting his family. To avoid more trouble, Cash asked Lazarus to hide Harlan's body before the dealer arrived. Soon, the Mexican dealer showed up with his crew. He asked where Harlan was because he didn't want to do the deal without him. Cash tried to cover up by saying Harlan had some issues, so he and Lazarus were there instead. But the dealer didn't believe it and refused to do the deal. Cash and Lazarus felt pressured because they didn't want to disappoint Big Cat, so they ended up killing the dealer and 2 of his men. After making sure all the dealers from Mexico were dead, Cash and Lazarus took the money that the dealer was going to give to Big Cat. This way, Cash completed his second mission. A few hours later, while washing the car, Cash told his older brother that he was trying to pay off all of Finney's debt to Big Cat by doing 3 jobs for her. Cash said he had completed 2 missions and had 1 left. Finney, knowing how tricky Big Cat could be, asked if Cash was sure Big Cat would keep her promise after he finished all 3 jobs. Cash declared he was ready to confront Big Cat and her men if they didn't keep their promise. Later, Cash and Finney taught Savannah how to shoot so she could defend herself if Big Cat's men bothered her again. On another day, Cash took on his 3rd job. He had to work alone to trick Sheriff Duke Parks, who often got in the way of Big Cat's illegal activities. Cash's task was to lure Duke to Big Cat's headquarters by telling him about a place where illegal drugs were made. Cash gave Duke the address of the warehouse where the drugs were made, making Duke thankful because he didn't realize Cash was tricking him. That evening, the Buck and his friends picked up Cash to go to Big Cat's headquarters for a celebration party with all the Mafia members. Since Cash had completed 3 missions for Big Cat, he was invited too. When they arrived, Cash saw everyone gathered in the living room, enjoying food provided by Big Cat. Big Cat gave a speech, celebrating their recent increase in profits. Shortly after, they moved to another room where the Buck brought in Duke, beaten up and tied up. Big Cat planned to execute Duke in front of everyone. Feeling guilty for Duke, Cash asked Big Cat if he could take Duke outside to finish him off, planning to save him. But Big Cat refused and killed Duke with a knife, right there in front of everyone. Later, Cash discussed Finney's debt, thinking it would be settled after he completed 3 missions for Big Cat. But Big Cat said that wasn't the deal anymore. Instead, Cash would have to keep working for her indefinitely to pay off all of Finney's debts. Disappointed and feeling lied to, Cash decided to leave the headquarters. The next day, Cash called Finney to tell him that Big Cat had broken her promise. He urged Finney to take Savannah and go somewhere safe, away from Big Cat's group. Cash planned to get revenge by taking down all the members of Big Cat's group who had lied to him. Finney agreed and planned to leave after they attended church because they had an appointment with Wilder. After the call, Cash started scouting Big Cat's base, figuring out where security was weakest. Meanwhile, Finney and Savannah were at church for the morning service led by Wilder. Afterward, they said goodbye to Wilder because they planned to leave the village that day as Cash had instructed. As Finney and Savannah were heading to their car, the Buck and some other men from Big Cat's group suddenly attacked Finney, badly hurting him. Savannah screamed in terror as she watched her father being beaten by these Mafia members. Finally, Wilder showed up and chased away the Buck and his friends. Because Finney was badly hurt, Wilder and Savannah rushed him to the hospital. Later, Cash received news of the attack and rushed to the hospital to check on Finney. Sadly, when Cash arrived, he found out that his older brother had died from losing too much blood. Devastated, he met Wilder at the hospital and decided to seek revenge for Finney's death. Wilder couldn't stop him but reminded Cash to be careful. The next day, Cash took action by killing 2 of Big Cat's men who were using drugs in a car. It was a warning to Big Cat. The police found the bodies and started investigating. Soon after, Big Cat arrived at the scene and asked the chief sheriff about his men's deaths. The chief sheriff suspected Cash because his car keys were found there. The sheriff seemed to be following Big Cat's orders to avoid Duke's fate. The following day, the Buck and his friends went to Wilder's house to find Savannah. Wilder refused to tell them anything, so they beat him up. Savannah couldn't bear to see Wilder hurt, so she surrendered herself to the Buck. Before they left with Savannah, the Buck told Wilder that he would be released if Cash turned himself in at Big Cat's headquarters. A few hours later, Cash went to Wilder's house to see Savannah, but instead, he found Wilder with a bruised face. Wilder apologized for not being able to protect Savannah. He also passed on a message from the Buck, asking Cash to go to Big Cat's headquarters immediately. After hearing this, Cash asked Wilder for help to save Savannah by kidnapping Zeke to use as leverage for her release. Despite being hesitant at first, Wilder agreed to help his friend rescue Savannah. Soon after, they went to Zeke's workplace and kidnapped him. Cash then called Big Cat to tell her that Zeke was their hostage and demanded Savannah's release in exchange for his safety. Reluctantly, Big Cat agreed and told Cash to bring Zeke to her headquarters. After hanging up, Cash decided not to trust Big Cat and asked Wilder to take Zeke alone. Cash planned to sneak into Big Cat's headquarters from the back road. At the agreed time, Wilder drove Zeke, who was tied up in front of his car, to Big Cat's headquarters. As they approached, Big Cat's men prepared to attack Wilder. But Wilder, knowing Big Cat wouldn't let Savannah go easily, aimed his gun at Zeke. Meanwhile, Savannah was tied to a chair. When Lazarus, who was guarding her, let his guard down, she quietly freed herself by cutting the ropes with a sharp iron behind her. Once free, she grabbed a nearby gun and shot Lazarus, causing him to fall out of the window. Big Cat then ordered the Buck to check inside the house, while she and her men exchanged gunfire with Wilder, who had managed to disable some of Big Cat's men. At the same time, Zeke seized the chance to run away into the forest. Meanwhile, Cash successfully took down several guards around Big Cat's headquarters. With Wilder's help, Cash managed to shoot some of Big Cat's men, even though Wilder got injured when Zeke, hiding behind a tree, shot him. Annoyed, Wilder fired back and hit Zeke in the leg. Despite his injury, Zeke tried to flee into the forest but was attacked by Big Cat's fierce dogs, drawn by the scent of his blood. Hearing Zeke's screams, Big Cat rushed to find her son, only to discover that he had been killed and eaten by the dogs. Meanwhile, Wilder continued to fight, eventually taking down all of Big Cat's men despite being wounded himself. Cash managed to sneak inside, searching for Savannah. However, he was suddenly chased by the buck. Despite the chase, Cash used his skills to defeat Big Cat's men. Once he found Savannah, Cash urged her to escape through the window. But their escape was blocked by Big Cat, who aimed a gun at them. Seeing no other choice, Cash decided to confront Big Cat alone. As Cash faced Big Cat, Savannah, determined to save her uncle, surprised everyone by attacking Big Cat from behind, causing her death. In the end, we see Wilder, who survived the ordeal, giving a sermon at church. Meanwhile, Cash and Savannah return to their daily lives, caring for the family farm. The film ends. So the moral of the story is, always read the fine print on your loans, or you might end up turning your farm into a part-time action movie set.